Yokoso minasan, I am the Anibosu, and welcome back to another episode of Anime School of Business. Now, last time we took some business lessons from the pretty gritty world of the whole and that of Dorohedoro. And admittedly, you could be feeling a little bit heavy after that one, so we thought we'd lighten it up a little bit this time. And, maybe you're feeling just like relaxing with a cup of tea. Perhaps you want to listen to a little bit of light rock. Maybe you've got some extra cake laying around that you've been waiting to enjoy. Well, let's all head to the music room because today we're going to visit the world of K-On! Music! K-On! Follows the story of Yui joining the Light Music Club along with Ritsu, Mio, Azusa, and Tsumugi as they try to find the balance of enjoying their high school days with each other and working towards their goals of playing a big live show. And I use the word working towards their goals pretty loosely. To be honest, it took me a while to get into this anime. Other people have criticized it for not really going in any one direction and being pretty vanilla most of the time. They're not exactly wrong, but it's not to say that it's not enjoyable either. I enjoy the fact that you could just kind of turn your brain off and enjoy the lighthearted banter in every episode, for instance. It's anime like K-On! That show why the style is so prevalent and popular. This moe, high school teen friends going through their daily lives style of anime. The production value is definitely there. I started the anime enjoying the music and the light comedy, but halfway through, I found myself really wanting that innocent, fun, carefree high school experience again. And now I refuse to accept that the average Japanese high school experience is anything less than that of the life of K-On! And the world would be a better place if we all got to experience that. Now you might be wondering at this point, what lessons can a group of high school girls that barely practice have to offer to us in the business world? Well, we're not going to be able to analyze them individually in this case, so we're going to instead look at them as a team, as the band themselves, and see there that the great lessons actually start to emerge. In the business world, you're going to be working in teams all the time, and especially in management. You're practically part of a management team, that's why they call it that. So how the team interacts with each other and how they're able to get their best performances out of each other is pretty essential, and the group in K-On! Actually does a good job of exemplifying this. So with that, let's get to our first lesson. Throughout the series, one constant barrier is in the way for the girls of K-On! To achieve the musical mastery that they say they want, and that's taking breaks. The group is constantly taking breaks, so much so that it can be argued that practicing music is really a break from their after-school tea appreciation club, and the band name After School Tea Time hammers this point in. But could there possibly be a benefit to this break-heavy method? After all, we see them perform rather brilliantly, and they generally achieve strong praise, even if they're sometimes a little clumsy in getting there. Luckily for the girls, taking breaks has been scientifically proven to improve the mind's ability to make good and difficult decisions. Conversely, not taking breaks lets that part of your brain that makes those decisions, which is the prefrontal cortex, work into overtime and become fatigued, which can alter your decision-making and reasoning abilities. To really showcase this, there was a fascinating study that showed that judges who took their normal breaks were offering parole options far more often than judges who either worked through their breaks or outright denied their breaks. Sometimes those judges, the rate at which they offered parole was reduced down to 0. The reason? It's just far easier on the brain to say no and move on than to go through the harder process of thinking and deciding based on merit. That's the impact of having breaks. But not only do breaks help restore decision-making ability, it also helps bring back our motivation, and it helps us fight off the distractions that we get as soon as we start to resume our task. Some people call this deactivating and reactivating your goals. Studies have also found that those aha, or those eureka moments, come to you far more often when you take breaks than when you don't take breaks. And if you think about it, in a workplace that's really based on creativity, like let's say art or marketing or music in this case, you need those aha moments far more often than a regular workplace. So nothing. So that's it. Moving on. Now in HTT's case, the band almost seems to work exclusively from aha moments gained from breaks, as opposed to putting in much effort. Now obviously they take this strategy to the extreme, but the lesson, and especially when you consider it against the ultra hardworking and long work culture of Japan, it's actually preaching a pretty powerful and controversial message to their audience. In effect, K-On! Is arguing that enjoying your work and allowing yourself to work when the inspiration hits you is a more effective, fulfilling, and definitely more fun way of making music, and maybe other forms of creative business as well. Now, in the real business world, this has been scientifically studied and proven repeatedly. In hotels, for instance, the mental strain of being on stage and handling upset customers takes a strong mental toll on people. And all too often, I've seen a front desk agent break down and snap at a guest who didn't really deserve it. But 2 guests ago, that guy deserved it. Now, in that very real example I just gave you, that front desk agent's prefrontal cortex cracked, and temptation in this case, which was snapping at the guest, came out when it shouldn't have. As a manager, letting a team member who is clearly frustrated step away from their duties just for a few minutes, maybe go outside, get some fresh air, have a drink, not a booze drink, it's saved many careers in hospitality. I'll say it again, breaks save jobs. It is a simple but very important lesson. And if you still doubt me, just Google, are breaks healthy? And don't forget that in most states, for good reason, they are mandated by law. So if everybody seems to know that taking breaks is not only good for business, but good for the employee, how come everyone doesn't do them? Well, broccoli and water are healthy, while soda and alcohol literally destroy your body. So I think it's safe to say that humans just don't always do what's best for them. And that's why you as a manager have to step in sometimes. Now for the next lesson, I guarantee that we have all heard this word probably too much before.
And the answer is synergy.
Synergy.
Synergy. What does it mean?
Yes, it's synergy. But I can tell you, in a workplace, when it actually occurs, it is pure magic. I'm going to read you the actual definition of the word synergy. Okay, am I going to read it? If I can find it. Synergy is literally the interaction or cooperation of 2 or more organizations, substances, or other agents to produce a combined effect greater than the sum of their separate effects. Basically, by myself I am good, but with the right others, I can be greater than I ever could be on my own. And I'm telling you, this happens in the workplace. To famously quote Aristotle, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. In K-On!, a very important scene unravels the mystery behind the magical way that the band is somehow able to pull off great performances despite a lackluster practice schedule. And lackluster is being pretty generous.
この前なんで私が外番組まないか聞いたよね。やっぱり私はこのメンバーとバンドするのが楽しいんだと思う。だからいい演奏になるんだと思う。
Now what the K-On! Girls have stumbled on here is pure magical synergy. Several things can contribute to synergy, but let's get the unfortunate truth of the situation out of the way. The real thing here is luck. There's absolutely a luck factor that the right people went to the right school and got along the right way to make this all happen. And in the working world, it's really no different. You can absolutely improve synergy, but you can't always create what isn't there. Luck, destiny, inspiration, whatever you want to call it, sometimes the stars just align and the right people come together and magic happens. So there's a couple ways that you can encourage or improve synergy. And there's other ways beyond this, but we're just going to focus on some of the basics here. First, make sure that the group understands the objective. Now the K-On! Girls make this pretty clear early on that they want to play at Budokan.
夢は武道館ライブ。卒業までに。
Now this goal, although it is pretty ambitious, effectively aligns the band towards a common objective, and it gives them smaller objectives along the way to keep them focused on it. This is also called a stretch goal if you are used to Starwood Hotels terminology. And a stretch goal is great because it kind of keeps you keenly focused on the big picture and making sure that the goals you have along the way are going towards that big picture. Secondly, open communication.
ミュート？ビブラート？何それ？こんなんでも1年間やってきたんだ。
There is no workplace that can function without good communication, and the girls find plenty of time to relax and communicate with each other. Arguably, this is another great example of why you need to have breaks, so that you can open up communication channels within your workplace. The third thing to do is to do something. The third thing you can do is encourage participation. There's a couple of times in the show where the girls actually trade responsibilities and duties. For instance, Mio is generally the one that writes the lyrics, but there is a point in which they all take turns writing lyrics instead.
じゃあみんなでそれぞれ歌詞作ってみる？いいな。
There's even a time where they actually trade instruments and try to play each other's instruments for a little bit.
それはそうなんだけどさ、たまにはちょっと変えっこしてみようぜ。
Now, admittedly, this doesn't go very well or last very long, but this is a great example of effectively cross-training in a workplace. And the great thing about cross-training is not only does it give you additional skills that you didn't have before, but most importantly, it gives you buy-in and respect to what your peers are doing next to you. And that is very essential for synergy. Now, the fourth and final way to drive synergy is to make sure that you're having fun. Because it's really hard to be motivated if you're not having fun. Ritsu and the gang are pretty effective at making sure that the group continues to have fun, which continues to drive the performance of the K-On! Club and make sure that the girls have a great relationship with each other. For instance, Ritsu's joking, or Mugi bringing treats and tea all the time, or Yui just being silly and being a character in herself. All these are methods in which they have fun. But one thing they do in particular when it comes to having fun really makes it successful. And this is going to lead us to our final lesson for the day. Team outings. Outings deserve their own special spot in this list because of how important they are. In K-On!, the training camps are basically synonymous with beach mansion vacations, thanks to Mugi and her seemingly infinite wealth. But it doesn't stop there. The summer music festival that the team travels to, going to eat together, even hanging out at each other's houses are all examples of outings that the team decided to take together, leaving the music club and going and doing something fun together. All of these things bring the band closer together. They forge fun memories with each other, and they help drive synergy by letting them better understand each other and be in sync with one another. Now, in a real workplace, it's not like you can do all the things that they do in K-On!, especially not as often as they do them, but you can take your team out. Now, for HR reasons, professionally, I have to say, try to avoid making all your outings centered around alcohol. But personally, I prioritized outings, sometimes even against the team's will. First off, it's fun as a leader. But beyond that, people are different when you remove them from their workplace. A change of scenery has a really big impact on people's psyche, especially if their workplace is a pretty stressful one. By pulling the team aside and getting a round of drinks, going to dinner, or even kayaking in a bay, all things I've personally done with my team, you can show them that they're appreciated outside of work and bring them closer with each other. I've even seen managers who didn't really like each other that much become closer on outings because they're interacting in a different environment, drastically improving workplace relationships afterwards. I cannot recommend outings enough. And sadly, a lot of leaders of other managers just don't think that their managers beneath them need recognition anymore because they've grown out of it or they're past that and they're no longer the line staff. But this really couldn't be farther from the truth. Please make time to recognize your team, no matter what position they are, and have fun with them. You will be very impressed by how much better they perform when they get back to work. So now we have learned 3 very important and fairly interconnected lessons from the band of K-On! But what about you? Are you the kind that thinks that you work best if you just keep grinding it out, but then you find out you're pretty burned out by the end of it? Or maybe you love going to work when this one particular person is working because you just work so well together, things are easy and they're fun. Or maybe your team's been really grinding it out lately, and you're starting to think maybe it's time for us to take a little bit of a break. Well, as a leader or a future leader, it's your job to recognize these signs and ensure that you're using breaks appropriately, promoting synergy, and making sure your team performs at peak level. Working smarter is not always working harder, and we always have something to learn ourselves. Thank you for watching this episode of Anime School of Business. Of course, the next episode will be keeping it nerd casual. I am the Anibosu, and this meeting is adjourned. Iterashai.